Leeds United have just finished their match against Middlesbrough, and oh my god, that was a stressful game, especially when I was trying to take notes whilst finishing up work stuff at the very start. I'm going to go through the match bit by bit and sort of talk through the various tactical things that happened, how it made a difference to Leeds United, and ultimately what this could mean for the coming weeks and the rest of December. So, first up, we have to talk about the team. It was a completely unchanged first 11, which is good. It shows that everyone is basically fine, everyone is fit enough, and Farke has enough trust in their legs to keep them going for a bit. Slight issue with Dan James, potentially, after this match, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. Before I dive into it, I'm going to say I promise I tried to take notes, but it wasn't the easiest game to take notes of when I was finishing up worky bits, and the first 6 minutes were the bit that I half missed. So we started off with an early goal conceded. That wasn't ideal in the slightest. It meant that Middlesbrough sort of had a foothold in the match from the very beginning. Gray wasn't really fantastic in the early challenge, didn't quite stick a foot in quite right. At this point, I was wondering, is Gray really set for this match? But things turned around as they went on. And it was a banging finish. Some people might blame Illan Meslier for it, but I don't think there was anything he could have done about it. And then we instantly bounced back. And we bounced back with a Dan James equaliser, weirdly from a header. The ball had pinged around a little bit. We were proving that we were able to create those chances, and eventually one of them landed on Dan James's head and in the back of the net. And I was only halfway through taking this note when the next one happened. Another header from a very short winger that shouldn't really be happening, this time from an Archie Gray cross. That first 6 minutes was absolute chaos and really proved that in the Championship, when things descend into absolute madness, it's absolutely a roll of the dice, but if you've got better players, then the dice are sort of weighted in your favour, which is the case when we have the front four that we do. Throughout the early stages of the match, neither team had any real control. There were chances at both ends, brilliant saves from both Meslier and their goalkeeper. There was one example where Somerville had a fantastic break, Rutter had a chance and it was saved. Everything broke down very, very quickly, and it's a very hard game to talk about. So for the most part, I'm going to aim for just sort of like the general big tactical bits rather than individual incidents. Other than, for example, Dan James absolutely being at his best. There was one point where the goalkeeper was under a lot of pressure from Dan James, who tried to dink it over him. Goalkeeper just sort of padded it away. I think he got away with that being given as a foul because I'm not sure how much Dan James hit him. Ampadu was very unlucky by landing the ball on top of the net, but it was given as a foul on the keeper. That happens. Ampadu would have scored, I think, his first ever goal in league football. I think he's only ever scored in playoffs before or something like that. Very weird. Throughout it, Boro were completely unable to handle the press as well, to the extent that one of their centre-backs managed to injure himself trying to keep up with our players. That, again, is the incredibly good front four that I'm talking about. The ability to sort of say, well, okay, we'll just outrun you, and then once we've outrun you and got the ball back, we will outskill you, and then we'll win. Saying it like that comes off a little bit simple. Watching the match didn't feel it. Then we got a penalty. And I was quite surprised as to what the foul was in this case, because I thought it was a handball, and then he rugby tackled him. And the person that fouled him had only been on the pitch for a minute, but on the bright side, Peru converted. I think that goes down as a Jorginho Rutter assist, and it probably should, because the amount of stuff he created in this match that he won't get credited for because there wasn't a goal in it. Very weird. Then we're lucky to not concede a second goal from a free header that they had at the back post, and then they did score a free header. Quite frustrating. Free headers seem to be our issue. It wasn't a free header. Byram didn't quite jump high enough in this case. He wasn't able to reach the same heights as their centre forward, which is basically fine, I guess. And now we get to the first of the weird refereeing decisions. Before this, I thought there was some weird bits and bobs, like something should have been a free kick, something shouldn't have been a free kick. And then a minute after Rutter has been pulled to the ground by a defender whilst he's trying to break, they gave a free kick, fair enough, didn't give a yellow card, which I thought was a little bit weird. But then Rutter does the exact same thing back. Not given. Very confusing for me, I think. Sorry, that was a very urgent work thing that broke up my flow of thought. Yeah, giving Rutter a yellow card for the exact same foul that had just been committed to him and not been booked felt weird, and things got a little bit weirder as the half continued to go on. Then it was 3-2. They scored the goal from the header. I've been through this. Sorry, I've just spent 10 minutes not recording because of various chaotic bits and bobs. Another weird refereeing thing that I noticed. The linesman at one point gives us a throw-in. Boro player asks for a throw-in, makes his case, and he changes his mind, which is very weird. I didn't quite understand that. And then there was a potential first red card for Middlesbrough. The first time that Dijksteel could have been sent off was what I thought was denial of goal scoring opportunity on Crescencio Somerville. Didn't get given. And then moments after that red card didn't get given, Dan James got a yellow card for incredibly soft reasons. I can't remember what it was. I think it might have been tapping the ball away with his foot. But if you're being so reluctant to give yellow cards one way, you've got to do the same the other. Just basic refereeing, honestly. Then it was half-time. And the second half calmed down a little bit. I've got a lot less incidents to try and remember from this half. Started out with what I thought, with my first note, was Rutai missing a simple chance. It wasn't. It was, in fact, a fantastic save from the goalkeeper. It looked like it was sneaking into the bottom corner, and the referee just didn't see that there was a save. Those happen sometimes. But, yeah, it was one of those, because immediately after this, I've got reluctance to book Boro players for continually dragging players down and, like, throwing fouls away when we're trying to break out. And it just adds up to the referee feeling a little bit inconsistent or naff. I can't quite decide which. Ethan Ampadu was a little bit clumsy in possession throughout the middle of this match. There's no real way of sort of denying that. We lost the ball a lot of times in our own third or in our own half, and it felt like it was just the occasional poor touch. Our centre-backs were good enough most of the time to deal with it, but we'll need to keep an eye on it as we evolve as a team and keep an eye on the rest of the season. Immediately after that, there was the red card. Second yellow for a challenge on Dan James. It was probably a straight red anyway. It was studs up into the ankle. Very, very hard. We didn't get anything out of it in terms of the free kick, but the fact that they were a player down, I think, saved us a lot of stress in the second half, because we already looked a little bit wobbly. But being able to do this meant that they were a man down, so their mentality changed, which also led to another very nasty challenge on Dan James. But they didn't have the players to throw at us anymore. We came weirdly close to conceding as well, in which there was a cross. Strauch got the initial block in, which put it onto the post. They have a follow-up shot, but Joe Rodon absolutely threw himself in the way. Rodon is a fantastic centre-back. The fact that we don't own him right now is stressing me out, because it means we'll have to pay for him. It's not very easy. A lot of the time, I think we pushed a little bit too hard to try and score goals as well, because the more players we were throwing forwards, the more we thought it's 3-2, 4-2 is a little bit more comfortable. We'd leave the two centre-backs back, but in reality, they would be comfortably in the Middlesbrough half. I think at that point, we were sort of taking a few too many risks. We were trying to work a little bit too hard to, like, secure the game, when it would have been a bit more secure to just, like, sit and wait. Then we got to the typical Daniel Farke, maybe a little bit too late substitutions. Pat Bamford and Willie Gnonto came on. Ruter and James came off. Also coming off was a lot of Pat Bamford's hair, who has gone for a very, very, very short hairdo that is blonde now. I thought that was quite weird. But that was the start of us taking control near the end of the match. Our press was working incredibly hard. All of the front line was trying to force them back into corners, force them into mistakes, and it worked half the time. Ilya Gruev and Jaden Anthony then came on for Joel Piroux and Crescencio Somerville, but the game was basically won at this point. I would like to also note, Archie Gray, take a fucking bow. Archie Gray was so good in this match, not only on the ball, but in terms of making recovery tackles or pressing all over the pitch. He's somewhere that, in the first half, he's a centre mid playing at right back, and he was functionally a right winger for a chunk of that half. He can play absolutely anywhere you put him, and the fact we have him right now is spectacular. Whether we keep him next season, I think, comes down to whether we get promoted or not, because if we're in the Championship, him playing here is just going to hold him back in a key stage of his development. But that's what I thought from the match. Let me know what you thought in the comments down below. Like the video if you enjoyed, and subscribe. Even become a channel member. That'd be massively appreciated. And I will see you later.